Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description. So you've got
Yeah,
a 1 pound, 1 pound hand here, right? Is that right?
the really, really high stakes. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So £1, Genting Casino in Coventry. So yeah, I am £400.
Okay.
Villain one has £400. Actually, I should probably explain where they are. So it's seven-handed,
hmm
and I'm sat in the hijack with 7-6 clubs, 7-6 suited.
Okay. 7, 6 of clubs.
And I know you got confused about this in my email, but it comes around to me. At least I thought it came around to me, and I accidentally raised to £7, not knowing that the low jack hadn't yet folded his cards. It's one of them where he sat anyway behind the dealer. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I accidentally raised first in, and then the low jack I found that he hasn't actually folded, and he decides to just go ahead and raise £6 anyway.
So
Um,
you're in the hijack. You thought the low jack folded, so you went to make it 7, but he didn't. And
Correct.
nothing changes because, like in LA, it sounds like out of turn action doesn't really matter. So he raises anyways to 6, even though he saw that you were going to raise to 7, right? To his left.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Correct.
So you've got
Anyhow, so
7, 6 of clubs. Okay.
yep. So I have some six of clubs,
Yep.
and so I decide to just flat him. So it's I should probably say me and this guy have probably the most. He's the only guy on the table that I have history with. I have stacked him a few times in the last in the last week or so. So he's an older guy, middle-aged older guy. He's obviously a recreational player, and he can be quite aggressive. But he targeted me quite a lot. I like to call him an ego player.
All right. Well, I
Anyhow,
mean, just something interesting on that little mark. I don't mind the flat call in the sense that, again, it's low live stakes. Well, dealing with pretty large open sizes. So when you start three betting hands, I mean, he's opening to 7x, or you were about to open to 7x, you open to 6x. So you'd be dealing with a large pot. But even if you wanted to do some late position three betting versus a late position open, 7-6 suited is a fine hand to do with. But this brings up a live intangible, which is the fact that the guy saw you raise and he raised in front anyway. So usually what that will mean is if a guy was truly weak, they would just muck if they were going to raise. So I don't mind flatting with the bottom part of playability here. You know what I'm saying? Like usually that tends to mean that he's going to actually have a hand here. So I have no problem with the flat, whereas otherwise maybe occasionally you three bet 7-6 of clubs, low jack versus hijack, although that probably doesn't happen that much at 1-1. But okay, so you call, right?
yes,
And
yes,
then the cutoff calls as well to your left, right? And everyone else
he does.
folds?
Correct. Yeah, everyone else folds.
Okay.
So the pot is a whopping £20 going to the flop.
Okay. Yep.
Uh, and the flop is King 7-6 all of diamonds.
So you've got bottom two, right? 7-6 of
I've
clubs.
got bottom.
Okay.
So the low jack goes ahead and he leads for £6.
Okay.
Quite a small bet.
Yep.
And I was so obviously my first question here is obviously what to do in this situation. I decide to go for the raise, a pretty small raise considering the size of the pot,
I
to £18.
think that's perfectly reasonable.
I didn't want to. I don't know. I don't want to scare out hands that can call. And in his position, particularly given our history, I felt like I could get worse hands to call and still.
Yeah, and people will like proceed on monotone boards with sort of weird bet sizes that aren't bluffs. They're just sort of scared that they don't have the nuts. So I think that that's perfectly reasonable. So he bet 6 and you raised to 18, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then it gets weird because the cutoff behind me decides to cold call.
Okay.
And having watched your videos, I've learned to proceed more cautiously when that sort of thing happens.
Sure.
Um, and then the low jack then calls the original raiser, then calls behind.
So
Uh,
6, you make it 18. The guy calls behind, and the low jack also calls. So the way, I see where you're going with this, Mark, right? But
Correct.
what I will say is that it's not necessarily a freezing point. What I mean by that is that you're like, well, preflop raiser bet and I raise and this guy cold call behind me, this is always a flush. It's just because of the nature sort of the small sizing that the ranges could be a little bit wider than sort of like this guy bet 15, you made it 50, cold call behind. You see what I'm saying? It
Yeah,
could be a little bit wider than that. But yeah, I can see how this might get a little bit iffy. Then the original C better also calls. So
yeah.
the original C
I'm
better
also
could obviously have a diamond in their hand. Somebody could flop the flush. The guy behind might just have a king. He could have the ace of diamonds. Okay.
yeah. I'm also factoring in at the time as well. My table image. I'm probably the most frequent free better, so people are much less likely to sort of take my free bet into. It's less likely to mean real strength. So anyhow,
Uh-huh.
so the low jack calls. So the pot's now £74. I've got it at. And the turn is the queen of spades.
Okay.
So the low jack then checks. I
Yep.
check as well. And then the cut-off into the pot of £74 bets £21.
So this is interesting.
Um,
So whether or not to check here with bottom two. Now, obviously, you lose to king queen now as well, right? Um, and you do just have bottom two. So, I mean, obviously, I was just sort of thinking out loud in my head, like, what would you do here with this? I mean, what would you do here with like pocket sixes or pocket sevens? Would you check here
yeah.
on the turn? The difference between those hands, of course, is that you have improved equity against a flush, where you could actually continue on to a raise of some sort, whereas 7-6 you can't. And obviously, if you've got sevens or sixes here, you beat king queen, and with 7-6 you don't. So I would still 6 to 18. I got to tell you, I would still probably tend to bet. And then if somebody just wakes up, it's a really easy bet fold. You know what I mean? And if the time that you want to shut it down, if you want to shut it down, you could just, like, if you say, I'm going to bet this two streets, you could bet turn and then just check river on a blank. Because at that point, it's really tough to get three streets from from a hand that's worse than 7-6, unless they're really bad and they're just going to call down with a king. So I would still, because of the quirky nature of the small sizing on the flop, I might lean towards another bet here. If it was normal, like I said, 15 to 50 call, then obviously this is a check on the turn. So, okay, you decide to check, right?
Yeah, so I did decide to check. Weirdly, I didn't actually cross my mind at the time to bet. I've probably watched too many of your videos where I've seen people where you get the cold call where it just ends up going horrendously. So I was playing it more cautiously, probably more cautiously than I should have.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
So the I check.
So king
the cutoff
7-6
bet-
all diamonds turns the queen of spades, 6-18.
cutoff bet's 21.
Yeah, right. Cold call, turns the queen of spades, check, you check, and now the cutoff bets. How much?
£21 into the pot of £74.
Boy,
So
that seems like a very weak bet.
my thoughts exactly. So now
Yeah.
I'm confused. So at this point, it's difficult. It's more difficult to range him.
Yeah.
Now, so I should give a background on this guy. So he's a recreational player, loose passive.
Uh-huh.
I've not. I say recreational player. I've not seen him play much, but given from what I've seen, hardly seems like a pro. Not free betting much pre-flop. You know, all the key tells. Anyhow.
Right.
So yeah. So he goes ahead and bets very small. The low jack then calls behind.
Mm-hmm.
Now this here, I actually tanked this decision for a while. So I'm thinking, Mike, I was really struggling to range the car, and the low jack is where he could be on some sort of draw. Anyhow, so I sort of tanked for a while. Must have been longer than usually, about 30 seconds. I eventually called.
So it's interesting that you, in the email that you sent me, I wouldn't have known that you were thinking about folding. I don't think you can fold, that's for sure. I mean, you're getting 95, 116, 21 to call for 116. I thought that you were going to say that you were thinking about raising, and I think your hand's probably too weak because you don't want to open your stack up on a board like this, and somebody can certainly be sandbagging here in the sense of whether it's the pre-flop raiser or this cutoff who's just trying to put some money in the pot with the nuts and he doesn't want to check it through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The cutoff also could have a hand that he doesn't want to get checked through, like King Jack. King Queens are sort of out there too, but I think calling is the right play here. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, that's what I did.
Yeah.
So at this point, the pot is I've got it as £137.
Okay. Yep.
River is what looks to be a glorious card. It's the six of spades.
The six of spades. Okay.
Um,
So now you're full, right?
Now it's full.
All right. So now
And
you're
it's this point where I make an absolutely horrendous error, and as soon as I did it, I would kick myself.
well.
So
So
go on, wait,
so so the I'm assuming the preflop raiser checks, right?
so yeah, so the pre-flop raiser checks, and then as soon as I did it, I was like, what on earth did I just do? I decided to check as well. Now in this situation, I'm well aware I should always be betting.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, not. I mean, in a higher stakes sort of theoretical situation, it you probably wouldn't lead here all that much in a spot like
Mm,
this. But in a low stakes, and this is where low stakes is definitely differs from higher stakes. Um, the problem is that you're gonna get a lot of hands that very well might call a large bet to check behind. Now, if the guy
yeah,
has the nut flush like in position here, he should really bet. I've seen crazy checkbacks though. And then of course the other issue is that if you check to the guy that's in position and it's the guy who's the original raiser who's sandbagging and it gets checked through, it's a disaster. So at these levels, I don't depend on people to sort of value bet my own hand for me at this level. So as you go up and up and up, I think checking here certainly has some viability, especially if you think that there are some higher sets in the preflop raiser's range, possibly, and you're actually choosing to sort of check call with a hand like this, kind of like for balance type of scenario, because you're losing the kings and queens. Like I said, that's neither here nor there. I'm just talking about sort of at the higher stakes in a theoretical concept about what hands we decide to do with. But here, yeah, I would bet. You know what I mean? I would just bet. I would
at
bet,
this stage,
and I would probably bet probably close to pot. To be honest with you, I mean, it sort of sucks if the guy in position would bet call off with the nut flush, but
mm,
these sizings and this action doesn't really tell me that somebody. It's more likely that their hands aren't that strong. Somebody can be
yeah,
sandbagging, but it's more likely that their hands aren't that strong. So just bet and hope somebody hero calls you with a king.
definitely. I've seen way too many circumstances where people have checked that there. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so the cutoff, which I was relieved to see that he bet, but he bet £100 into the pot of 137.
So the cutoff bet's 100.
Yeah,
Okay. And then what does the low jack do?
the low jack tanks
Yeah.
must be between 30 seconds, probably around 30 seconds, I think, and he decides to call.
I would check jam here at this level. The low jack should have the nut flush here. Excuse me, the not the low jack. The guy in the cutoff looks to have the nut flush here quite a bit.
Mm,
Um, who knows what the low jack has? I mean, he could be playing black aces scared. You know what I mean? Like ace king, he could have king queen and he calls, but I'd go broke here. You're not going to get a bet fold here from the nut flush, not at this level. Now, if someone's got like a weird, and so you're not really scared of the boats. There aren't any boats that really beat you
correct.
here because the guy in the
Well,
cutoff would have three bet kings and queens preflop, right? And the low jack here just calls. That doesn't make any sense. He's going to check jam. So it's very hard for me to think that you don't have the best hand here unless somehow like the cutoff has like pocket sevens, which is like a mega cooler when you have
yeah,
7-6, right? Or he's got like, queen. No, I can't even have that. I was gonna say, like king six suited. You
yeah,
know what I mean? King
yeah.
six suited, but those are very, very, very small portions of hands, especially with the blockers that you have in the hand. So I just check jam here all in between. I do like a bet though from up front, but it seems quite glorious what has happened with a £100 bet and then a call. What did you do?
It, that, it was it was quite glorious at the time. So I I didn't check jam. I actually so that I've got a £365 behind. So that the bet and the call were both for 100. I actually raised to 300.
So, because the villain one is in the cutoff or the low jack?
Villain one is in the low jack, so
Well,
me and him are on.
you have to raise enough to put villain two all in. So if villain two starts, because I'm
Yeah,
looking
so
at,
that did put him up.
okay, yeah, you have to raise enough to put villain two all in. Past that,
Exactly.
it probably doesn't matter because you're targeting villain two. Villain one looks like he's just holding on with something, but you just got to get all the money in from what is the probable nut flush here from behind, which is what this guy's representing with the full pot size bet at the end.
Correct. Okay, so
Hmm.
I raised you 300.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
the cutoff folds,
Okay.
and the low jack tanks for even longer. It must be about a minute and a half, and
Hmm.
calls
Yeah.
with the ace high flush.
Okay. So the low jack was
Slams
the
the
one that
table
was the low
complete.
jack was the
You know,
one that was sandbagging then, right?
yeah, the low jack one was the one that was sandbagging. Yeah, so he's a guy. He raises me absolutely huge withdrawals, and he
Yeah.
always slow. He's got, as you say, slow play itis with his really big hands.
Yeah, but I mean, I
And he
don't
ended.
think. I mean, that's just a really weird one. I think that the hand reading in a normal sense would be the one that the cutoff is the one with the hand, the value hand that you want to target. So even though you didn't get the last 100, but the other thing though too is that, but that's why I would check raise all in though, because what difference does it make? You just want to get the money in from villain two, right, in the cutoff. But at that point, villain one, he's either going to have a bluff catcher or very occasionally he's the one that's sandbagging the nut flush, which is what happened here, right? So you want to get his money in too. So that's why I would just
Hmm,
check jam. Because if cutoff has the nut flush, he's going to call off, low jack's going to fold. In those weird spots when low jack has the nut flush, you'll have what this happened. And now you didn't get all his money, right?
yep. Yep.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. You are correct as always, Bart. Thank you very much for taking the call.
all right, great. Thanks for the call. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.